Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. We have a Powerledger video for you guys today. Powerledger, one of the favorite projects in my portfolio, especially related to this whole peer-to-peer philosophy coming into fruition over the next few years around the energy market. Us as users of energy can become prosumers and pass our energy carbon credits around the world or to our neighbors, depending on the excess energy credits that we have, making it more sustainable, more efficient. We'll go into a bit more detail about this because a case study has come out in the last few days, and there's been quite a nice surge in the price point of Powerledger, and I think certainly that news coming out and more institutional levels of investors and people coming in to understand a bit more about this philosophy around energy. It's a very exciting time. Guys, before we do that, don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel and make sure, if you haven't done so already, smash that subscribe button. Let's go straight into this video, guys. So first and foremost, I just wanted to pinpoint on this article here. It came out a few days ago. I was just literally come back from the trade finance TFDI event the last day or two, so apologies for lack of videos this week. Doing my research in the background, so we're back onto this. This was relating to a PDF here, which is basically accumulation of a few different authors, actually 8 in total, including of course Gemma Green from Powerledger themselves respectively, and of course a load of other people as well involved in this very interesting article. Now I'll leave a link to this in the description in the comments, of course. It actually occurred around Canada time a few months ago, putting this whole entire thing together, and the whole philosophy around this is LEM. So this is about local energy markets, and this is where we talked about in the past of that kind of principle, really, that let's say you've got your own little community, whether it's a cul-de-sac or a small regional town, something like this, right? Or even a complex, maybe even a work complex could be a good opportunity and idea there as well. You would have essentially a miniature community grid. Now, of course, there's energy grids all over our country here in the UK and across the world, absolutely. But you tend to have these localized quite far away from your house, and then obviously the wiring, the cabling, etc. brings your energy back and forth, whether that's the format of fuel energy or of course electricity. And there's a multitude of ways that's produced still in today's world. Renewables is obviously a big thing right now and has been for a long time. This is the relation to solar and wind specifically, sometimes tidal as well, and a load of other theories and solutions to that. And of course, you've still, in some aspects and some areas around the world, you've got still the existence of coal, and in some cases nuclear, and all these other solution ideas too. So the LEM is basically where we could potentially have our own kind of small infrastructured battery capacity holders that perhaps even have turbines built on top of them, and I'm not talking about like the ones you see in the fields, they're just slightly smaller ones, but enough to contribute enough power and energy to the local community. So power, say 100 houses, maybe even 1,000, who knows, depending on how big the capacity generator and the battery capacity in general is. And of course, there's other things you can attach to it, solar panels, etc. And this formulation would then allow us as individuals, as users, to have essentially a platform where this could potentially be centralized, in the sense that the community or whoever's in control of that particular capacity battery, etc., is coordinating who gets what and when. And if you do have excess energy or you don't use those credits, you can pass those back and pass them to someone else who may want to buy them off you, for an example. And not necessarily what you would expect, like in existing rates and things, where we get extreme high bills for however long it's been now, certainly here in the UK, where we're dictated to by your wholesale network electricity and gas prices that are obviously then passed down to us with a load of other variables that increase these prices. Having them on a localized level means that we don't have such a big travel cost of that energy coming to our properties, and as I said, there's that sharing capability as well. So when we're looking at like the 2030 and the 2050 ESG goals and the targets, particularly the Paris climate aspects as well, it's a really important narrative to think about. And Powerledger has gone ahead with a lot of different case studies, both physical and in theory aspects as well, to understand and underpin how important this can be moving forward. And there's a couple of statistics that came out of this particular paper based on utilizing a comparison of how we do things at the moment compared to if we did this, what could you expect from it? And there's a couple of things I'm just going to throw out there. So from a prosumer's perspective, i.e. you and I, as I just mentioned a moment ago and in previous videos, is instead of us being consumers, i.e. buying it off our grids, as we normally do and pay our bills, we have it in a prosumer factor that we can sell. We can make savings, but we can also sell the excess. Apparently, prosumers witnessed between 15.7% and 22.4% savings on electricity expenditure. So that's pretty decent. I mean, I don't know how much your energy bills are out there. Of course, here it kind of like varies depending on how much you use, of course, and then the standard rates on top of that. So you've got those considerations, but 22 or around 20%, maybe average 18 to 20% is pretty decent. And the local electricity market approach, or energy market approach, offered roundabout reduction of 34% of export and 37% of import in peak power buy sell from the grid during the afternoon and evening hours. So this is heavily related to, of course, the peak timings of when energy is predominantly used around markets and around the world. As we mentioned just a moment ago, this whole aspect of the battery energy storage system, which they call the BESS with a small s, as you see on the screen here. This is about the infrastructure, the architecture, as what they mention here, of how this can operate within our local remits. So we've already got some really good narratives, albeit in case study phase and theory stage at the moment. It does paint a good picture, a good positive picture for us to want to be able to and want to use this kind of technology and solution moving forwards. I think if you go to any business and say to them that you could save between 15 and 25% off your energy bills, and it's not a case of you having to just chop and change electricity companies, it's actually because you've got your own systems within your own infrastructures, your own property or your area of your property, I think they would very much welcome that. On the bottom line, 15-20% is a huge saving for some companies, especially if you're talking about the multi-million pound turnovers here. And even from a residential perspective, as I just mentioned a moment ago, from the public domain, 20% could be quite a lot of money. Of course, depending on how much your bills are throughout those monthly and yearly annual periods. So it's a really interesting topic, and it's certainly something that's coming more and more to fruition. I think I mentioned this before. There's an energy bill going through the UK right now, and it's not predominantly focused on things like blockchain technology, but it does have aspirations around artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, and a small usage mention of blockchain within it as well. But on top of this, there is also another bill that's being looked at, is the local electricity bill. Okay, so this is actually the second opportunity. This was first of all created a while back, and it was kind of, I don't know if it was ignored or not, but it never actually got past the first reading, which is a bit embarrassing. So this was back in, I think, not too long ago. It was maybe a year or so ago. It was last updated on the 7th of September, and I think they've just coordinated it into one section now. So this is the first one in 4th of May, first reading, and then a second reading didn't really happen. So it started again, number 2. Now, I'm going to try and get hold of David, actually, because I think it's a really important topic to keep pushing. And I think the way this will really push forwards is we've obviously got things like the Electronic Trade Act that's just been made as an act. So this is like law, legislative, around electronic trade. This is probably around supply chain, etc. But in my opinion, I think this should also coordinate a lot of those aspirations towards the energy markets, considering that we import and export that as well. And it's it is just products in general and merchandise, etc. So that aside, we do also have, as I said, the energy bill going through, and now we've got bills like this going through, or certainly being talked about. And the speed at which the Electronic Trade Act went through in the grand scheme of things, albeit has been talked about probably since around 2011, 2012, 2015, it came back into fruition. And then more recently, the last couple of years, it's kind of been almost, in my opinion, rushed through in those latter stages, especially when it got to the House of Lords stages. So we've got a long way to go before it gets to that stage. And for those outside the UK that don't understand, generally a bill occasionally comes through petitions and surveys, or it's something that an MP wants to bring forward based on conversations they've had with their public domains. And then you go through all these stages and these readings, they sit around tables, talk about it, debate it, blah, blah. And eventually, if it gets to a full consensus, it can get passed through the House of Lords. This gets a bit more serious. And then, of course, when that's back and forth, sometimes they can take months, sometimes they can take years, depending on the priorities of the country's narratives and topics that they've got to get through. And then finally, the final stages, where it's very much just concluding, making minor tweaks, and then the royal assent, where the king at the moment signs these as from bill to act, and then they become law. And then all of a sudden, education be spewed out and talked about how to get involved in this more and more. So there's a long way to go for this, in my opinion, in the sense of you and I, similarly to crypto in general, and again, that's another regulative law that's been passed recently here in the UK around digital assets. It'd be interesting to see, if I delve a bit further, whether that does cover carbon digital assets as well. We'll have to see. What I mean by that is what we're talking about here, in energy carbon credits. But in my assumption at the moment, that's not considered, and that's why we have these separate bills. And more importantly, to not just protect consumers and prosumers, but also, as you can imagine, they want to probably have some aspiration of control around this as well, moving forward, so that we, or you and I, couldn't just send each other loads of carbon credits and justify random crazy prices. That's not the whole point. The whole point of utilizing blockchain is not just the powering and the transactions per second, it's also the transparency, the validation, using AI for real-time data, so that we can't go, oh, I'm going to sell you this for £1,000, right, when it should be like 50 pence or something. It needs to stop that. So that's why these bills and things and regulations need to come forward. But back to this case study, with those bits in mind, we talk about the infrastructure that would need to be put into place. There's obviously a lot of investment. Who pays for that? How is it coordinated? That's why it's not going to be an easy, quick thing to do. However, there are case studies, particularly in Australia, where Powerledger has been operating a lot of their energy, excuse the pun, into those kind of actual physical representations of what their ability is. And more recently, of course, when we're talking about like the Solana networks, Polygon, etc., we talk about the multitude of transactions per second, which really would need to be required if we're transferring carbon credits backwards and forwards individually, as regionals, communities, globally. It really needs a significant power behind it. So at the moment, of course, Ethereum is always usually quite expensive and very slow, and you can't coordinate those kind of transactions per second, albeit that many products and chains are built on Ethereum. You do need these various layers or different chains to utilize what you need to do to make it work. So there's a lot to go on, and that's why when you're an investor, in my opinion, that's not financial advice, but when you're an investor and you're doing research on these things, you're not just coordinating your opportunity to see, potential market implementation or marketing, to enhance a hyper growth in a chart of a crypto asset, i.e. the price fluctuation of going up and down. You're looking at things that, okay, if I just be a bit patient with this one as a long-term investment, which for me, Energy Web and Powerledger are definitely long-term holds for me and accumulators for me, irrespective of the price fluctuations that we see, which we'll go on to in a minute. When you see these coordinated efforts of what they're trying to achieve and what they're doing, whether it be theory or physical based, and the fact that legislation around the world is changing, it starts painting a really good positive picture to you to go, okay, I may not be a millionaire overnight unless you're very good at day trading on these markets. But for me, I'm a long-term holder of these because I understand the proposition, the value, opportunity in 5 to 10 years time and beyond. We're at the early stages, guys. So when people go, oh, well, if this is all happening, why isn't the price point going up? Well, the utility is not fully there yet. We're in the very early stages, and you will get fluctuations of price because people get excited about snippets of information, things that go on in events or conversations in the back behind the curtains, as it were, definitely occur, and people go, okay, I understand that. I'm going to put a load of money in. That's how it kind of works. But to really stamp the authority on this conversation, this is some statistical information here from President's Research. The global blockchain in energy market size was valued at $0.66 billion in 2022. And by 2032, I don't know why they didn't choose 2030, maybe it's a better representative number. $203.27 billion. Okay, so there's a huge market opportunity, and this isn't the energy market overall. This is purely around the blockchain aspect or aspiration in energy. And when you conclude what the energy sector consists of, you're talking about humongous sectors of energy, peer-to-peer energy trading, which we've just spoken about. There's the renewable energy in general and the certificates behind that. So when we talk about transparency and validation and things like this, grid management, supply chain management, which is my point earlier, that I do anticipate some elements of that Electronic Trade Act being crossed over, because it is an import and export fundamental in general, and smart contracts. So there's huge application here for blockchain. And it's not just the chains. This is where the ecosystem gets a really interesting topic, because we always look at these chains like Polygon, Matic, Solana, Ethereum in general, all of these different ones, right? And people always like, which one's going to win? Well, they're all going to be used in their own way. This is the really exciting thing, because you can invest in blockchains, and then you can invest in projects that are building on these chains or using these chains for their transactions per second, whatever the criteria is that they're using them for, and being able to invest in these technologies and these companies like Powerledger. It's almost like a double-edged sword, as they say. Like there's real positives on either side of this, and it's really interesting. So this is when we do a bit of dot connecting. When we're doing research, we have to understand that what is this project, but what they're involved in, and then understanding the actual market, the residual value, not just now, but in the future, what's being talked about, what's being done, and more importantly, more than ever before, in my opinion, is really hammering down in our mindsets of what our governments and parliaments are talking about and what they are doing. So when we start getting understanding of this, and by the way, I've sat in many parliamentary meetings and I've had to explain to people what the internet is, or how security cameras and things like this work, or artificial intelligence over the few years. And it's quite staggering, because they just come back and forth in the House of Lords. I'm sure they use all this stuff, but they ask the questions because they're like, I need to really fully understand what this is about for me to be able to get this into the second reading stage. Or is it interesting to me? Is it, I can't be bothered with this, we've got more priorities for our country. So there's a lot of work to be done, but the stepping stone approach is there for sure, and we're at those beginning stages, and they are coming into fruition, guys. Go and check out the energy bill, go and check out these bills, have a read of the documents, the files, and then, as I said, the incorporation. All it takes, guys, is getting to the big huge events around the world, where we've seen like the Paris Climate Agreement ones, more recently like the COPs, etc. We've got other events coming, and as soon as more and more companies like EnergyWeb and Powerledger, Hello3, you name them out there, come to more in the fruition pattern of conversation, the more people will turn their heads and go, how much money is this going to make me? How much money is it going to save me? There's your two big criteria for a business. And ultimately, yes, of course, I'm sure, well, who knows, that most of them hopefully care about the climate and the environmental factors for years to come. And if they have ESG goals and they could eliminate or shortcut this using legitimate and very, very conclusive ways of solutions, i.e. blockchain and the utilization of IoT, AI, and companies like Powerledger, I think they would 100% be very interested and go for this. So it's in the early stages, guys, but it's really fascinating topic when you look at it. So if there's any further questions, do drop them in the comments. We will get their team back on, and I'm quite interested to try and get a demo done as well. Not so much from a business perspective, it's more actually, okay, let's understand a bit more how this actually works and see it in action. But yes, as I said, more regulation, more legislation is coming worldwide, especially through the EU, especially here in the UK, and considering where we are with other legislations right now being passed into law and acts, I have no doubt in my mind this is around the corner. So guys, on that end of that part of the topic, let's go into the chart of Powerledger. So as I said, we've had a very interesting uptake of around 35% in the last 2 or 3 days. It's quite staggering. There's no, as I said, no kind of specific information that's come out to suggest why this has happened, other than these case studies. And as I said, if you're at the very high levels or research levels, or you do have a lot of capital, you're going to be fascinated by what was found in those PDF case study documents. And it could be enough to go, I understand this, I want to trial this. Maybe people will come for the demo and needed to utilize the POWR tokens to be able to operate those demonstrations, and perhaps even start their own journeys in the, not necessarily the LEM markets that we just talked about now, but generally all the other practices that Powerledger offers as solutions to their customers. So there's loads of different variables as to why this has come out, and you do see occasional jumps for Powerledger. It does do quite well when announcements or bits of information come out. You could argue that the volume isn't as big as many other projects out there, so that's why you do see quicker fluctuations. But in general, as an overview, it has been doing very well, and it's been really sustainable in terms of its price point, to be honest. It's had this good wave pattern, testing these kind of 12-cent regions on a number of occasions, not just way back here where it saw resistance on the way up in 2020 and 2019 respectively and beyond that, but more recently it's shown resistance on the way down. So again, I do anticipate that we might come and break down these lower levels to retest again at some point. But the fact of the matter is that more and more people are becoming educated about the energy sector with the utilization of blockchain and technology partners like Powerledger. And I think you're seeing that. I think you're seeing that in the market in terms of the sustainability or the stability, of these kind of price points that we see today. So we have flown ourselves all the way back up here to around 21 cents as a recording. In fact, what I'm just going to quickly do is just take these quick operating points of some of the lower spectrums and some of the more recent high points here. In fact, I'm going to take that one because it does give a good representation of bite points that we've seen in the past as well. So you can clearly see, if I just pull that across, it's ironically matching up as well with one of the previous macro lines here. So I just pull this across, you can see, if we zoom in, it is taking just above that 21 cent. It couldn't quite break that 22.3 cent barrier. So I anticipate a bit of a drawdown here, maybe a retest of the 20 cent at some point in the next couple of days. I'm not truly expecting it to fly back up to 27 again. We'll see, but let's see how that plays out. But now, if you're new to Powerledger, you're going, oh wow, this is very exciting, I must buy some. Of course, you're absolutely able to just have a bit more of a risk management perspective in your minds, a bit of DCA opportunity, and reduce that risk management, because we see on the bottom left hand side here the RSI on the 14 days 76, 28 days showing 69 for me. Both of those numbers are too high for me to be accumulating, so I'll wait a bit. And I do anticipate to at least have a retest of that 20 cent mark, and probably over a period of time, whether it's a few weeks or not, or maybe into a month, to retest those 18 to 15 cent marks again. And that's not a discredit to Powerledger or anything like that. It's just how markets tend to work as people take profits of these increases. As you can see, at the moment, floating roughly around that current price point of 21.5 cents, people are going to be sort of umming and ahhing, going, okay, are we going up on another leg? Obviously, some people have sold off slightly, and you can see that even in yesterday or last night's closing and openings, and as of the day before as well, that kind of little pattern going on too. So for me, I have been accumulating Powerledger for some time. Right now, I'm just going to be waiting slightly to see if we edge back down to that 20, and probably around that more important price point for me personally is the 18.5 cent mark. So let's see how that plays out. But performance-wise, just to reiterate the stability of Powerledger, if you look at the performance indicators on the right-hand side here, the weekly, the monthly, the 3-month, they're so strong. There's not many projects out there that can boast that. And Powerledger has had a really good couple of months in terms of announcements and developments, advancements in what it's doing. Particularly opening up its own chain for Powerledger itself, which is really exciting, especially with the fact we talked about the transactions per second and why they've done that. They're getting ready for the future, guys. They're seeing the future. They're going, okay, what we do now will not benefit us in 1 year, 2 years time, and definitely won't benefit our customers. We need to sort it out now. So when we're in this development stage, this conversational stage with parliamentary levels and governments, etc., this is the time. This is the time to reassess, reevaluate, and start implementing change. And I think these guys are going to have a significant bull run with the Powerledger price as more and more companies will be coming into this. I do think that we will see huge numbers by 2030 for sure. But in the 2024-2025 bull run, I do anticipate us to smash through that previous all-time high of, I think it was $1.33 at launch potentially. But certainly more recently in that 2021 mark, we saw around about $1. So I do anticipate us to push way beyond that, and we could start seeing those sort of $160 to $250 marks as a minimum, I would say. We'll have to see again how that plays out, but I think it's an exciting time for the energy market and the utilization of blockchain and these technologies within those. Let us know what you think about this in the comments. If you want any more information or things that I've missed out, do ask and let me know. But as I said, I'd implore you to do your own research in all of this, not just Powerledger and some of the other projects that we talk about in the energy markets. I'm talking about doing research about the market in general, the valuation of it both now and in the future, and understand what's coming, because it's coming whether we like it or not. It's just about when, not if. Guys, thanks so much for watching this. We'll see you in the next Powerledger update video. Take care. Bye bye.